Good day. I'm Mike James, and this is a new day dawning in the roller coaster tycoon kind of games. Yeah, we're looking at Planet Coaster. I know a lot of you have been watching the development of Planet Coaster. A lot of you may have already purchased it or planning on purchasing it. I want to take a quick look at it now. This isn't a full review. This is my initial impressions, and just want to let you know what's going on with the game and why you maybe should or maybe shouldn't buy it. We do a lot of shows on Parkitect here. I still love that game. But now that Planet Coaster is in full release, I figure it's time we take a quick look at it. I did not pre-order this. I have not been playing the beta, primarily because one of the things I've been doing is playing a lot of the beta on Parkitect and just enjoying the crap out of that game. Well, with Planet Coaster, I wanted to wait for the full release. You know, it's the same kind of a theme. Building a theme park, making roller coasters, making rides, designing buildings, but with a completely different aesthetic and a whole different way of doing things. And that's what we're going to talk about here, is a lot of what to expect, what's maybe different than the original Roller Coaster Tycoon games, what's different from Parkitect, what's good, what's not so good, and my hopes and dreams for the future. Don't forget, leave me a comment, like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Hang on tight. Planet Coaster is coming right at you. Coaster. This is my first, and so far only, park I've designed in Planet Coaster. I've been working on it for about a week now, and you'll notice I've got quite a bit done to the park already. Got several roller coasters, multiple rides, and all the scenery that you see here, any buildings or anything, these are all completely handmade by me. I haven't used any of the workshop items or anything that came preloaded in the game. Everything I put together piece by piece myself. It doesn't look as good as maybe I'd like it to, or as some of the outstanding designs I've seen some of the I guess you call them professional builders make. You know, I'm a semi-pro. But first thing I wanted to do is take a look at the way you make things and you make buildings in Planet Coaster, and talk a little bit about some frustrations. We go to the buildings material here and click on custom. We don't want the pre-built ones. And just to make things a little simple, I'm going to go ahead and select just the regular sandstone building material. That way we don't have this huge list. So here we are. You will notice, first of all, there are no half walls. Now, there are half height walls, like this here. It's only 1 meter. That's actually a quarter height wall. That's great. But there are no vertical half walls, meaning that you can't, you can just overlap walls using a couple tricks to make something that's, 1.5 walls wide. However, there's no way to build a square building and then have a little jut out without using other things like pillars, and it just won't look like it's part of the actual, structure. Now, there are a couple ways around it. One of those ways is just by stacking walls, one right next to the other, and having the part that you don't want kind of inside the other building. That's a kludgy way to do it, and it'll take up a lot of frame rate, because you're going to have these buildings with huge numbers of polygons that you don't need. So here's a regular wall. Now, look, as you start out a building, you can do, let's get rid of this tooltip here. You can just do whatever you want. You can just put it wherever you want. You hold down Z and you can rotate it any way you want. If you just tap Z, it'll rotate 90 degrees at a time. So you're very, very easy. And you'll notice that down here, all these things that are on grids are the things that will automatically pop to the grid of the building you're on. Now, some things don't automatically pop to the grids. Generally, those are the detailed, but the main details, the main structures, always are on some sort of a grid for your building. So let's put this like this, so I just turn it sideways and I plop it down. There we go. That is there. Now, every other wall that I put down, and if I hold Z, and you notice I can go on the inside or the outside. Very important when you're building, usually you want to go on the inside. And we can just plop these things down very easily and make ourselves a building, and it's all right on the grid. It's very easy. It's quick. It's great for that. You can also go ahead and reduce the size of the grid, and that's something you really need to do in some cases when you're trying to do things, because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want here's the grid. Now that I'm not having a piece, I can reduce the grid size, and you notice the squares will get smaller when I put a new piece down. There you go. See that? Now the squares are smaller. The issue, of course, is that there is no effective way to, let's say I just wanted a little jut out here. There's no effective way to do it with these pieces, because what I have to do is I have to go ahead and do this, and I hold shift. Now you notice you can hold shift. If you try to put it and it's on top of another piece, it tends to go up in the air. Just hold shift, pull it down. That's fine. But now there's no easy way to fill in this little gap here. And if you notice here, I can't even just stack them like I was saying because it's stuck to the grid. Now there's a way around this, but it is so kludgy. You notice we're in building 6. If I just click up here and click done, now I'm no longer on the grid. And now I can just go in here, pull it down to where I want it to be, and now I can put it wherever I want. The issue here, of course, is now I have absolutely no grid snapping, and so I have to sit here and fidoodle with it. There's another one. Oh, wait, now I'm on the grid again. Wow, how did that happen? Well, click done again, come over here, lower it back down like you did last time, put it up against, click. And you have to do this every time. And every time you do this, you're making a new building. Now, the idea, I believe, what they were going for here was that when you make a building and you keep it all on that one grid, what you're able to do is you're able to move that building very easily. And you can move the whole building at once. The issue, of course, is that you're not going to be able to do that if you have to use one of these kludgy side tactics. And I guess it's the way they programmed it, and I'm not sure if it was a something to make, I guess, the performance better. But I do know that what it has done here is, now you notice each one of these little blocks, and I didn't line them up perfectly because, like I said, it takes forever, is a different building. Every time I click on one, it's a new building. If I take this original building here, I can always just go ahead and move it. Yay. Problem is, it doesn't move all this. So, and we have the same problem when we do any kind of unusual buildings, as far as things that don't fall on the 1x1 grid, and we try to add roofs to them. If you make something that's 1.5 and you want to build a roof, for example, if we go here to buildings, roofs, and let's say I put a roof here. Now this is not on the main building, but I just want to show you what would happen here. If I put a roof here, and then I had a building that was 1.5 high, so I put another roof. Let's go ahead and get this out so I can just show you. And I put another roof here. And what you wanted to do, now I'm not doing this perfectly, I just want to show you kind of an example. So let's say you wanted to put a little thing in the middle here. So you came and said, hey, I'm just going to put this a peaked roof section in the middle just to kind of cover that up. And what ends up happening is, even if you reduce the grid size, it doesn't matter. Because of the way the grids are designed, you will never get that piece perfectly in the middle because it doesn't meet with their grid predetermination or whatever you want to call it. And see, I can't just put that in the middle. So you end up having to go over here, click done. So you're now on a new building. And then you can go ahead and you can just pull it in here. Now, you may have noticed another issue that is kind of frustrating. Now, see there, now again, there, now we have, let's get off of this so you can see it. I hate how the blue comes through. And see, you kind of lined it up. Now, I didn't line it up perfectly, but now you have exactly what I had intended. Now, one of the other little frustrations here that you may have noticed when I was placing that, and I'll just grab another one of these, is that when you're trying to put something down, even if you're not on a building, like this one is not a building, but I want to put it, let's say right here, but it keeps changing heights. And so if you change the height, just like a lot of other games, once you change the height manually, then you can go ahead and it'll stay that height and it won't do that pop up and down thing. And I know that's a feature to help when you're designing buildings on their grid system, but it's really frustrating. So that's the example I wanted to show you. If you're having problems building in Planet Coaster, the biggest thing I can tell you is that, you know, select your piece. And if you just want to put it anywhere and you don't want it to be on the grid and you just want to be able to plop it down anywhere you want, see that building up there on the upper right? Click done. Now you can put it anywhere you want. I got to tell you, it took me 30 minutes to figure this out. And it's made things a lot easier. But the lack of half walls and a couple other key features in the building system it feels very limiting. And there's ways you can kind of kludge around it. And honestly, the system that you use to make buildings is amazing. It is spectacular in what it's good at. It just really, really sucks for a lot of other things. When you're trying to make a building and have a coaster go in between that building, you will run into frustrations where you can't align the opening correctly. And it won't let you put it where you want it. And then you have to overlap pieces and kind of figure out what will work instead of what your vision was. And I really personally find that very frustrating because I get an idea in my head and I want to design it. I don't want to get an idea in my head, find out it won't work, and then have to design, well, this will sort of be what I was looking for because it's the only thing that will work. And I would really, really, I really hope that they go ahead and they add some half walls, or maybe somebody will mod in some half walls for all the textures, because just that little bit will help so much in getting things to fit where I wanted, you know, maybe half and quarter walls. And also just having a button where I can take things off the grid and leave it off the grid. So I don't have to keep going up and saying, no, I don't want to make a new building, because I end up with 36 buildings in one structure. Kind of frustrating. So Planet Coaster, not perfect, but I don't want you to get the impression that it's not good. It is very good, and within the limitations of what you can do in this game, you can still make some astounding things. This building I built around the flipper here, made it by hand. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but I did make the walls, put the little dots on them, put the gears and stuff, and I really liked the way it turned out. And that's one of the things that's strong points in Planet Coaster, is when what you're designing works, it is very, very rewarding. You can really make some amazing things, some scenes and some ride decorations that just blow my mind. You know, when you compare it to some of the other simulations we have out here, Roller Coaster Tycoon World or Parkitect, this is a step above in the graphical stunningness that you can achieve. The day-night cycles are great. The one little thing you may notice here is that at night we have shadows. A little bit weird. It doesn't look bad. It's just a little off-putting, but it's still really cool. And the lighting effects overall are really, fun to look at. Making paths takes a little practice. There are several tutorials out there. Biggest thing I can tell you is just play with it, work with it. If you don't like what you did, delete it and start over again. I'll do some tutorials when I become more familiar with the game. One of the things I didn't want to do is just start out making tutorials because I don't know enough. I've only been playing the game a week and I'm still learning things. I'm making buildings 5 times as easy as I was just a couple days ago, just based on my workflow and things I've learned that what works and what really doesn't. I will tell you that there are a lot of limitations. The game really places limitations on your creativity in a couple areas, but you can work around them. And if you've watched any of the so-called the people I call the professionals, I think it's Silverette, just that man amazes me. Now, could I make buildings that look as good as his? By copying him, yes. But he has a design mind. He has a way of putting things together that just almost always seem to look right the first time. Maybe it's just good editing, but I'm going to give him props. He is outstanding. But you could see here, my castle that I built here, I tried not to overdo it, and I just did it in stucco. I didn't want to do it in any huge texture. I wanted a very clean looking for the most part, with all my decorations on it, and I really like the way this looks. And that's what you want out of these games, isn't it? You want to design something and be proud of it, enjoy looking at it. Now, on the gameplay, one of the things I've noticed straight away is that there feels like there's a little bit less of a challenge in Planet Coaster when it comes to keeping people happy and making your park work. You'll notice there are a few things that aren't in Planet Coaster that are in games like Parkitect. Parkitect recently, and keep in mind, they're still in alpha. I'll call it a beta, but they're still not released yet and they're a ways off. But they've already got vandalism. Parkitect does not have vandalism, and one of the reasons is one of the limitations you tend to run into when you have a game that has a more realistic or a more detailed look. In Parkitect, it's real easy for them to make a couple quick changes to their benches and their trash cans so that if they get vandalized, and their light poles, if they get vandalized real quick, just boop, 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 and you can make it look like it's been damaged. In a game where things look a lot more realistic, that is a lot more difficult. So things like vandalism, not in the game. Keeping people happy seems really easy to me. I mean, maybe I just haven't gotten far enough into the game, but it really seems like people are just pretty happy doing whatever I want them to. I will tell you that sometimes they complain about pricing, but hey, doesn't everybody in real life? One of the other things is in Planet Coaster, when you're making these designs and you're having people walk around the parks and enjoy what you've designed, you really have to be aware of where you're putting everything and where the paths are going to go, because the paths can be a little unforgiving and you may have to end up moving things a little bit just to get the paths to line up correctly, because we're not on a grid system overall. In other words, everything isn't on the same grid. It is possible to put things down and then have it so the path can't connect because the distance is too short. Now, I've had a lot of fun designing these roller coasters here in Planet Coaster. One of the things I will tell you, it takes a little while to get used to the coaster designer, but once you get used to it, the momentum feels very good in this game. You really feel like the coasters are maintaining momentum and they're moving forward in a more realistic way than in a lot of other simulations. And the sound design is phenomenal. I can tell you that I have a lot of fun with it. Now, one of the limitations that you do run into with that more realistic look is we have a real dearth, a real lack of scenery. And you have 10 different trees and 15 different bushes, and you have a couple statues here. But when you get into trying to design an entire theme park and have different animatronics and different statues and just having everything together. Because everything has to look very realistic, it takes a lot of time and effort to make those assets. And very quickly, I'm finding that I'm running out of different assets to use. I'm having to reuse assets. Not necessarily a terrible thing, but I'm hoping that the Steam Workshop will correct that. Overall, if you like designing things, this is a great pickup for only around $40 US. If you like having fun and getting into the nitty-gritty of a simulation, maybe a little less so, but I still think you have a great time with it. Planet Coaster is great. I've enjoyed my week with it so far. Not giving up on Parkitect. I just really, of course, you can't ignore Planet Coaster. If you like this, please subscribe, leave a comment down below. And until next time, I hope each and every one of you has a good one.